Yo, I've been playing Honkai Star Rail for the past few days and wanted to give some thoughts on the story, which I think is really good so far. There's some interesting setup and potential, so I'd just like to share my initial thoughts and first impressions on the story, including some of the characters. I'm aware that since the game has gacha, the main focus is usually to roll for characters, but I've been really impressed with how most of the characters have been introduced and portrayed in the story. Like, I feel each of them really gets their own time to shine. Some more than others, but I'm pretty happy with how they're being portrayed. I think that while the introduction of the game felt a bit slow narratively, the overall setup of the lore and premise is quite interesting. The story starts on the Herta space station, which hosts the Astro Express crew, a crew of basically space adventurers called Trailblazers as they journey across different worlds and universes throughout the galaxy. The galaxy also has 16 eons, basically gods who preside over different paths. There are these special life forms called Stellarons from the Eon of Destruction, Nanook, that cause disaster wherever they're put. And one focus of our crew is to seal them whenever we can, to contain the damage and disaster they create, which is what we end up doing in the first mission. While the space station is attacked by Nanook's antimatter legion of monsters, 2 Stellaron hunters use the chaos to infiltrate the station. Silverwolf has fun by just hacking crazy reality stuff, and she also spends a good deal of the intro by hyping up Herta, which I appreciate because it's a nice way to flesh out 2 characters with just one. Kafka is a badass and cunning woman who inserts a Stellaron into the main character for unknown reasons, probably to initiate us to do something since we're important. Also, the only thing we know about Kafka is that she likes collecting coats, and I like collecting coats and fashion, so I'll be saving to get her. There's also a lot of lore about the Eons from Herta that I'm just not ready to dive into right now, but I'm glad it's there whenever we chat with Herta and go through her simulated universe. It makes sense with Silverwolf hyping up Herta because it's very clear that Herta is a very important character for expanding on the lore of the story. I like the overall gameplay too. The world is well detailed, feels alive, and the combat is pretty fun with lots of great animations. In terms of who I'm personally focused on, I usually go by character design and personality. So for me, here's been my main team as I'm playing the game. March 7th because she has the most eye-catching design to me, and her personality is fun and bubbly. Also, her shields have saved me in so many battles. Yenqing because I lost the 50-50 trying to roll for Seele. I do like Yenqing so far though, so I'm glad I got him. Himiko, who I wanted anyway, so I'm glad my beginner banner warps lucked out. And Asta, because I think she's a nice person, and I think she works pretty well with my team so far. I'm sure I'll try out the different characters later on, but for now, it's been a pretty solid team for me, and I'm mainly just focusing on the story. Also, Hoyoverse never misses with the music in their games, and this game is no exception. So yeah, back to the story. Our main cast is the Trailblazer MC, Heng, and March 7th. I'm not sure if the game will continue having this trio as the main story trio, but I think there's a good dynamic between them. Heng is cold and tends to be quiet, which is well contrasted with March 7th's enthusiastic and upfront behavior. There are many instances later where they show different ways of completing our goals, which I think is fun for the story. And about the Trailblazer, I'm glad that they do talk and seem reflective, but I kind of wish they had some more personality. I'd consider them somewhere in between Heng and March's personality, but still, I don't feel like I know their stances on many things, and I wish I had a bit more of that. I get that they serve as a representation of the player since their dialogue options can vary in tone from being serious, lighthearted, and also brainwaves? I don't know, maybe someone can explain that joke to me? But it's weird because the game does try to give some personality to them, sometimes. But it never feels consistent. It's the same kind of criticism that I have with the Traveler in Genshin Impact. But anyways, we'll see how the main character changes throughout the story, hopefully. So yeah, overall there's an interesting premise with the story, and our home base in the Astro Express has a great atmosphere, with Pom Pom as our conductor, who is very adorable and I thank every time whenever I get rewards for leveling up. There are also our crew members Himiko and Melt, and a good vibe with just chilling out in space as we trailblaze from planet to planet. Speaking of, the first planet we visit is Jarilo-VI, and its mission is where I think the writing really shines. I'll be talking about some general spoilers as well on the mission. The first planet we visit is Jarilo-VI, a planet that has been suffering from an eternal freeze for the past 700 years. The cause is linked to a stellaron there, and the anomaly causes the Astro Express to become stuck. So MC, March 7th, and Don Heng are tasked with an expedition to investigate and find the stellaron so the crew can seal it. The only city people live in on Jarilo-VI is called Belobog, which has a history of worshipping Tlepoth, the Eon of Preservation. Its ruling group are the Architects, with the supreme leader Cocolia as its guardian. The city is in danger from eventually dying due to the eternal freeze, and Cocolia is being influenced by the stellaron's voice to sacrifice the people for a new world. There's also the Underworld, which Cocolia ordered to be cut off from the Overworld 10 years ago, which has led to its people suffering to survive while the Overworld is unaware of these struggles. So this sets up the conflict of needing to resolve the isolation of the Underworld, while also dealing with the eternal freeze caused by the stellaron on the Overworld. Something I really liked was how the story portrayed the struggles in both the Overworld and the Underworld. The Underworld struggles because the Overworld stopped helping the Underworld. Life is just survival for them, which creates resentment towards the Overworld. And then the Overworld falsely believes that the Underworld is fine because of various robots helping it and such, but they're too busy to question Cocolia's decision because they're also trying to survive themselves by fighting every day against the monsters from the Fragmentum, which continues spreading because of the stellaron. So this sets up a good story with some political complexity. I loved how the story did a great job with utilizing each character to move the plot forward while also fleshing them out. Sampo, or Shampoo I guess, is someone who usually travels between both worlds, so he's the one who brings us to the Underworld and back. Bronya is Cocolia's daughter and next in line to become the Supreme Guardian, so it makes sense that she's brought along to the Underworld to see for herself just how much ignorance the Overworld has been living in, setting her up to get an understanding between her and the Underworld and changing things for the better in both places. Seele serves as a great character to help Bronya see the life of the Underworld. I also really liked Bronya's character development, so I'll be making a video next covering that. The Underworld wants to open the way back up because of how poor their life's been, so it makes sense that there's a group like Wildfire trying to do this. But then there's Svarog, a robot boss who's been keeping the people under because he believes that they'll survive longer down here. One of the dynamics that also shine the most is Clara and Svarog, because while Svarog doesn't talk with other humans, he does see Clara as his only family, and yet Clara does have sympathy for the Underworld people, so she plays a good role in questioning and influencing Svarog to reconsider his decisions. Also, I'm pretty sure that Clara and Svarog's designs definitely took inspiration from Elia and Berserker from Fate Stay Night, and that pretty much makes me automatically like them. I was really impressed with how we convinced Svarog to tell us the truth of the world, because the story kept telling us that the Trailblazers are the new variable that needs to be considered. And then when Svarog finally recalculates his stance, he notes that the first new variable is actually Clara, which I really liked because it was such a touching way to emphasize how much he cares for her. I have to give a shout out to Natasha too, because I thought it was a great little twist when the innocent caring nurse turned out to be the leader of Wildfire when she whipped out a giant weapon ready to take out Svarog because of how desperate she became to help the Underworld. So after we resolve the Underworld conflict, the Overworld conflict is handled in a similar fashion, where characters are well utilized to move the plot forward. Bronya confronts Cocolia, which gets Cocolia to take Bronya to the stellaron. We get help finding the stellaron from Serval because she had originally researched the stellaron, but was ejected from her position by Cocolia. I'd like to make a quick complaint here. Part of why Serval helps us is because she wants to see the stellaron herself, as it would be validation for her rejected research. And therefore, I'm a little sad that she decided to stay with Gepard at the resistance zone right before we got to the stellaron. And March said she'd take photos of it for Serval later, but this never happens. So I declare this to be a plot hole. And justice for Serval, please. Anyways, to convince Gepard to let us go, there's also character development for him to have trust in his family, in this case his sister Serval, and to not always take orders seriously. And finally, the confrontation with Cocolia was an awesome boss fight with some more lore introduced as the MC gets a new power. The OST playing during this fight was also incredibly hype. Chef's kiss to Hoyoverse music as always. I'm pretty satisfied with the resolution overall because by sealing the Stellaron, we're also able to resolve this 10-year conflict between the two worlds. I've always liked story conflicts between good people in unfortunate situations, because it leads to characters making complex decisions. The ending wasn't happy as well, which surprised me in a good way. You can tell that there's still work to be done, and I think that makes for a good conclusion. Bronya's decision has some good nuances with it, so I'll talk about that more in the Bronya video next. So yeah, after I finish making my next videos, I'll be playing the next Trailblaze mission, which is good timing because I need to spend a few days anyways getting to level 29 to unlock it. Again, I was really impressed with the writing because of how much it was able to utilize all the different characters to further an interesting plot while also giving them their moments to shine, and to also change as a character for some of them. A pretty strong start to Star Rail story, so I'm definitely going to keep playing, and yeah, that does it here for me. Feel free to subscribe for more content, and thank you for watching this video. Till next time, take care.